Hello, year two. How are you? Today's English lesson. Now, in our English lesson yesterday, we looked at personal pronouns, didn't we? Remember, pronouns replace a noun. So a person, a thing, or a place. So they replace the noun, and that helps us to avoid repeating ourselves over and over again. Now, we learned about two different types of personal pronouns. We learned about subject personal pronouns and object personal pronouns. Now, those are going to be really helpful in our lesson today, because at the end of this English unit, we are going to be writing a letter from Florence Nightingale to her family back home. However, we are going to be pretending to be Florence Nightingale. So we're going to be writing as if we were Florence Nightingale. So therefore, we will need to write in the first person, and you'll find out what that means in a moment. By the end of the lesson, you'll know what I mean by first and also third person, and you'll be able to use your knowledge from yesterday and know which personal pronouns you can use in both the first and the third person. So will you use I, he or she, it, we, they, and so on? And you'll be able to edit some sentences. So some sentences that are in the third person, you'll be able to edit them so that they're in the first person. Okay, now before we do that, let's see how much you can remember from yesterday's lesson. So here you have some sentences. Be careful with the tea because the tea is very hot. I wanted to play with my new toys, but I couldn't find my new toys. And when my mum and I arrived at the cafe, my mum and I ordered a sandwich. Okay, so could we use any personal pronouns here? Any subject personal pronouns or object personal pronouns to avoid repeating ourselves? Because these sentences are very repetitive, aren't they? Like in the first one, we say, be careful with the tea because the tea is very hot. We say the tea twice, don't we? So therefore, could you pause the video and have a go at adding some personal pronouns to avoid repeating ourselves? Okay, year two, so let's have a look at the first one. Wow, it says, be careful with the tea because the tea is very hot. Now, I would like to change the tea. What personal pronoun could I change the tea for? Now we are going to need a subject pronoun because the tea is the subject. It is the thing that is very hot. Okay, so what could we use? Yes, you're right. We can use it. Be careful with the tea because it is very hot. And by using the personal pronoun it, the subject personal pronoun it, we are avoiding repeating ourselves. Okay, the second one. I wanted to play with my new toys, but I couldn't find my new toys. Now, we've said my new toys twice in that sentence, haven't we? And that doesn't sound very good, does it? We're repeating ourselves. So let's see if we can change the second my new toys. Now, we are going to need an object personal pronoun here because the toys are the thing that we can't find, that I can't find. I can't find the toys. So we need an object personal pronoun. Which one can we use? Because there's more than one toy, isn't there? That's right. So therefore we need that. I wanted to play with my new toys, but I couldn't find them. So them is replacing the noun my new toys. Okay, let's try the last one. When my mum and I arrived at the cafe, my mum and I ordered a sandwich. Now we've said my mum and I twice here, haven't we? So let's try and change the last my mum and I to a personal pronoun to avoid repeating ourselves. Wow, my mum and I, that's two people, isn't it? But one of those people is I. So therefore, what personal pronoun am I going to need? Well, yes, I'm going to need the personal pronoun, the subject personal pronoun, we. And we need the subject personal pronoun we because my mom and I, we are the ones doing the action. We are the ones that ordered a sandwich. Well done, year two. Well done for remembering all of it from yesterday's lesson. And as I said, this will really help you in today's lesson where we're going to be using. Okay, so let's just recap before we move on. Subject and object pronouns. So if the subject pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, and they, and we replace these with the noun that is doing the action, and then we have the object pronouns me, you, him, her, it, and them, and they are object pronouns because they are the noun receiving the act. Okay, so let's have a look at the first and third person and see what I mean. So you can write from 3 different points of view. You can write from the first person, you can write from the third person, and you can also write from the second person, but we're not going to be looking at that in detail today, but I'll just mention it quickly now. We are going to be concentrating on the first person and the third person. So the first person is used when you're writing about yourself, okay? So when we did our diary entries for the Great Fire of London, remember you were writing the diary entries as Samuel Pepys. So you would use the personal pronoun I, and you'd use me. And when you were talking about Samuel Pepys and his wife, you didn't say Samuel Pepys and his wife. You said we, because you were pretending to be Samuel Pepys. So therefore, that is the first person. You are writing about yourself. So you use the personal pronouns I, me, or we. And look, there's an example here. I dropped my ice cream on the floor. And look, we use my because you are writing about yourself, and that ice cream is yours, isn't it? So therefore, you need to use my. Okay, then the second person is when you're writing to someone. So if you're writing instructions, you would write, you will need an egg and some butter. So you're telling that person. So the personal pronouns that you can use for the second person are your and you, okay? But don't worry about that today because we, as I said, are focusing on the first and the third person. Now, the third person is when we are writing about someone else. So when we wrote our stories, our bubble stories, we were writing in the third person because we weren't Gabby, were we? We were telling the story of Gabby, which was in the third person. So we referred to Gabby as she. And if we were writing a story about a boy, we would use the personal pronoun he. And if we were writing about more than one person, we'd use the personal pronoun they. So that is writing about someone else that isn't ourselves. So let's have a look at the sentence below. John and Sarah went for a jog. So we are not John and Sarah, are we? Are writing about John and Sarah who are going for a jog. So therefore, we would replace John and Sarah with the personal pronoun they. They went for a jog. So now let's look closely at the first and the third person. So the first person, like I said, is if you're writing a story in the first person, you write as though you are a character inside the story. So we are going to be writing our letters as if we are Florence Nightingale. So therefore, we will need to write in the first person because we are Florence Nightingale in that letter. Now you will describe how you feel and what you are doing or what you have done. So in our letter from Florence Nightingale, we will describe how she felt when she arrived at the hospital. We will describe about her journey and what she has done at the hospital and what she found. Okay, but all in the first person as if we were Florence Nightingale and we actually experienced this ourselves. And we will use the pronoun I. So I travelled to Scutari. I improved the hygiene in the hospitals. Okay, so you are Florence Nightingale, so you will use I. Now, let's have a look at some more examples that are not to do with Florence Nightingale. So I decided to clean my car. So therefore, I am the person that decided to clean my car. So I'm writing about myself. I decided to clean my car, and because the car belongs to me, I'm going to use my. I'm not going to use I decided to clean your car because the car belongs to me. So I'm going to use my. Okay, then we went for a walk in the park near our house. Now, if we are writing in the first person, we can also use we, because remember, with we, it is more than one person, but you are one of the people. So you could say my mom and I, and use the personal pronoun we, because there are two people, but you are one of them. So therefore, you'll be writing about yourself and that other person. So we went for a walk in the park near our house, and we've used our because the house belongs to those two people. We went for a walk in the park near our house. So other pronouns other than I that you can use are my, me, mine, that is mine, we, are, and us. He gave it to us. Okay, so there you go. There are all the pronouns that you can use in the first person. And remember, you are writing about yourself. So that is what we're going to be using in our letter. Well, here is the third person. Now, as I said, this is what we used when we wrote our bubble story, because we weren't Gabby, were we? We were writing the story about Gabby. So we wrote in the third person. We were writing about other people and we were writing about the character Gabby. So we used the third person. Now, you use the character's name. So we use the name Gabby or pronouns such as he, she, or they. So we used the pronoun she for Gabby, didn't we? But if it was a boy, we could use he. And if it was one person that we weren't one of those, we can use they if we're talking about more than one person. So let's have a think. We can say Michelle normally walks to school. She got the bus. So we're not Michelle, are we? We are talking about Michelle. We are writing about Michelle, but we are not Michelle ourselves. So therefore, we are talking in the third person because we're writing about somebody else. Michelle normally walks to school, but on Thursday, she got the bus. Now we've used the personal pronoun she there, haven't we? So why have we used that? Because Michelle is a girl. So we've replaced the noun Michelle with the personal pronoun she. Okay, the next part. They had a picnic in their garden. So we have used the pronoun they because they are two people, but we are not one of them. Okay, so we wouldn't use we would use they. They had a picnic in their garden, and we've used their because the garden belongs to them. Okay, now, so I've said we can use he, she, they, but you can also use her, his, and their to describe if it's somebody. So it's his car, it's her car, it's their car. Okay, so you would use all of those in the third person. So are these sentences in the first or third person? Well, let's look at the first one together. I went shopping with my friend on Tuesday. Now, are we talking about ourselves or are we talking about somebody else? Yes, look, we've used the pronoun I, which means we are talking about ourselves. So therefore, that one is in the first person. We're not talking about somebody else. We're talking about ourselves. And we are talking about going shopping with my friend. So that friend belongs to me. So therefore, that is in the first person. Let's look at the second one. He wanted to play football with his friend. Now, am I talking about myself in this sentence? No, I'm not. Am I? Because I'm not the person that wanted to play football. He is the person that wanted to play football. It is someone else. We're talking about a boy that isn't ourselves. He wanted to play football with his friend. So therefore, that's in the third person. We're talking about somebody else.